Look at all these beans. There's literally a ton growing on this bean trellis that was a replacement for our tomatoes that had died off. They're growing like nuts. But how do you get a ton of beans or a ton of anything growing in your veggie garden or your orchard? G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 top tips on how to maximize your harvests. Let's get into it. Now, before we do get into it, I want to stress this is not necessarily about more space. Yes, I've got plenty of it, but most people don't have a lot of space. These tips will be apart from that. This is really a 10 top tips. I'm working today with Kevin from Epic Gardening and his team. He is doing a video on his channel at the same time, so make sure you head over and watch those further 5 tips. Kevin and I work fairly closely together, as a lot of you know. He sells these Birdies raised garden beds, and it just so happens to be the Black Friday sales coming up. So you might want to visit his store and check out the sales. Links are below in the comment section and also the description. I opened with beans on the right hand side here, but what I want to talk about is lettuce for the first tip. Check them out. This is tree lettuce or celtis. They are pretty tall, aren't they? Even though they are in a raised bed, they are still high for a lettuce plant. We're coming to the end of our lettuce or salad growing season because of our summer. So that's why all our lettuce plants are going to seed. But it still gives me the opportunity to give you an example of how you can maximize your harvest with this wonderful salad crop. You might have heard the term cut and come again. And that's what most people do with lettuce. They'll get a loose leaf variety of lettuce and cut the leaves as they're growing. Usually take the ones from the outside, and as the plant grows, it will keep producing more and more leaves. The pruning of the lettuce plant actually helps to stimulate growth, and thus you get more leaves and maximize your harvest. But what about a hearting variety? Well, you can do the same thing. Instead of pulling the whole plant out and putting it in the crisper, what you can do is you can cut most of the head off, say it's a cos or an iceberg or any type, loose leaf, oak leaf, and then what you can do is just leave that stump in the ground, give it a little bit of extra liquid fertilizer, and then you can either turn that into another lettuce in several weeks that you can just harvest again, or you can start harvesting it like a loose leaf lettuce and just picking off those young leaves as they grow. And if you really do want to remove the whole head, what I'd suggest then is, sure, pull it all out of the ground, but then as you pull that one out, immediately replace it with a seedling in that same spot, give it a little bit of love, and because it's such a fast growing crop, you'll have another lettuce in no time within that season. Well, speaking of beans, let's head over to Kevin.
Thanks, Mark. Hey guys, Kevin from Epic Gardening here in a little bean patch for our next tip on maximizing your harvest. So beans, actually this applies to peas as well. Both are legume crops. Consistent harvesting is really what's going to unlock the key to your beans and peas for the spring and summer. So what I mean by that is every single morning, at least once every 2 days, once you start to see the flowers and the bean pods start to form, you want to come out and pick those that are ready to go. And now when I say ripe bean pods or ripe pea pods, it really depends on the way you like to eat them. If we're talking dried beans, then you actually don't at all. You let them dry and harvest them afterwards. But if we're talking a fresh pod, which is what I like to eat, you want to come out and pick those slightly immature pods every single day. It's going to spur on more growth. Why? Think about it. You're removing it from the plant. The plant no longer has to put energy into developing that bean to a mature stage, which you don't even want it at. So this is a little bit of a chore, but hey, it's gardening, guys. That's what we're here for.
If you're looking to extend the growing season so that you can maximize your harvest, you don't need a large permanent structure like a greenhouse or a polytunnel. So yes, you can fine-tune the climate control inside to grow whatever you want throughout the year, but there are simpler methods that give you flexibility whether you are growing in raised beds or in ground beds. And with these temporary hoops that I like, these are just PVC tubing just bent into a hoop. I like to throw on a 6 mil greenhouse film, and in the winter that keeps my leafy greens nice and cozy, and it also stops the snow from squishing all of the greens, because that does happen. Not everything is as robust as kale, and come spring and summer when the insects and the intense heat and sun come, I like to swap out the film for insect netting or shade cloth to protect the plants from the intense temperatures. So by having this, you get a lot of flexibility throughout the year, regardless of where you live and what you're protecting your plants from. So with healthier plants, you're really going to maximize your yields.
A fantastic way to maximize your harvest is simply to have a harvest at all. And this really comes in your fall, and if you have the right climate, winter garden, you have to start that in mid to late summer. So I have a bunch of onions that I'm very excited to grow throughout our fall winter here. And it's late August. It's time to get these going because I'm not gonna have enough sunlight. Remember, if this is a map of the season, so going from here to here, early to late in the season, your sunlight's gonna peak in the summer, and those daylight hours are gonna come down in the fall. So you really need to get the seeds sprouted before the daylight hours are too minimal to actually produce a plant that's going to go into fall and winter.
If you're like me, you've probably had a really intense summer where you had a lot of issues that you weren't really expecting. In this case, I'm talking about eggplant, and all of these eggplants were entirely covered in spider mites literally a month ago, and I removed every single leaf from the plants. I figured if I'm gonna get rid of them, I gotta really do a hard reset, and that's what I did. And now each one of these plants has at least 5-6 eggplants already on it. I have 3 or 4 already developing on this one, as well as a bunch of flowers, and on this one back here, I'm actually already harvesting. So it goes to show that you can prune your plants back. If you think they've had such a traumatic experience, they will actually come back and give you a bigger harvest later on. This is something you could do with tomatoes, peppers, a lot of actually different vegetables. But for eggplants, this works really well, and I'm really pleased with the results. So prune back your plants if they've had severe damage. There's a good chance you'll get a huge harvest later on.
Another tip is to aid your plants. Now, I'm not talking about first aid or anything medical. I'm talking about helping them to maximize the harvest. It could be something like hand fertilizing your cucumbers by using the male flower to fertilize the female ones. This works for most of the cucurbit family. For example, pumpkins. Just use the male flower to fertilize or pollinate the female flower. Male flowers are usually on a long stem, and females have a small fruit at the base. You can buzz tomatoes with an electric toothbrush, and that can help pollinate them. Of course, bees and pollinating insects are most important because they do this naturally for you. So you might want to, if you don't have enough pollinating insects around, you don't see them, maybe get a beehive, get some native bees. Encourage those types of pollinators to come into your garden by growing more flowers or letting your plants go to seed. That's probably one of the easiest ways, is to just let a few lettuce, brassicas, broccoli, cauliflower, those type of plants, herbs, let them go to seed and attract those bees in, and then while they're visiting, they'll be fertilizing the rest of your garden. Another thing you can do is hill up potatoes. If they're an indeterminate type, well then they'll grow more potatoes from the stem. You know, you go through the trouble of planting your veggie garden and doing your best and fertilizing and caring for it. So it makes sense to maximize your harvest. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a big Maximise thumbs up. And also visit Kevin for those other 5 more tips on how to maximize your harvest on his channel. And don't forget his Black Friday sales as well. Links are below. Well, thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe and share the video around. Cheers.